everyone. This is Sam from the future. The episode you're about to listen to, episode 4, was actually recorded about 4 weeks ago. So if it sounds like we are discussing podcasts that we've recorded previously, it's because Daniel and I did about 6 or so episodes starting at the beginning of this year, just to get a feel for each other, the conversation, topics that we might tend to naturally talk about, and just kind of practice the entire thing in making a podcast. So this is one of the episodes that was previously unreleased. Daniel is traveling and unable to record at our usual time. So we decided to pull this one out from our tiny little archive and share it with you all here. We might do something similar with our other 6 or so episodes that we have, but I hope you enjoy this one, and we both really appreciate your interest and attention. Thanks.
You said hello before you started recording for the very first time.
Funnily enough, it is recording. I found out that I can start recording before you join.
Oh, God. Okay, well, great news. So we have about another, apparently, I hate this, about another 60 seconds or so. We have to record a trailer for the podcast. And instead of making you try to splice together a sounding hilarious, I am just springing it on you right now. We have 50 seconds. What is
a trailer for endless appreciation? What?
So hi, I'm Daniel. Welcome to the show, Endless Appreciation. I've got my co-host here, Sam. We're secretly becoming best friends. It's not very much of a secret.
Not anymore.
That's it. That's my bit. Now, yeah, secret's out. Man, that would be a great name for a podcast too.
Secret's out. Oh, wait a second. That is good.
No, we can't switch. Switch to it.
The logo and the font, everything looks great. Everything looks great.
Yeah.
Maybe we could have a Patreon only after show, because we always talk for 20 minutes after, and that could be a bonus Secrets Out, the episodes. Bonus content.
Our podcast already has a spin-off, a cinematic episode, a cinematic universe.
Before anybody other than ourselves has ever heard it, it is now spun off. Secrets Out. It's a great name. I'm sure that's taken. I don't know how to record a promo. What do I say?
We're already done. This is it.
Okay.
We've got interviews. We've got conversations about creativity, running businesses, platforms. That's it. That's the show.
Photography is a central theme in everything, but we talk about everything. Wait, that sounded awful.
Oh my God! Right. This is about photography. All right.
Photography
hit the end button.
Photography is a central theme in everything, but we will talk about anything. Yeah. Somehow we'll chop that up into something cool. What do you need it for?
I hope so. Man, no, we gotta. Okay,
pushing a newsletter
we
or something.
The little teaser. No, it's to publish you publish the first episode or the first trailer, so then they can subscribe to it. So we needed the trailer. There's a little spot for it in our whatever Simplecast thing.
Yeah, Simplecast. Okay,
that lets you.
I haven't used that before. I use
Yeah, so then we have a little spot to upload it, and then we're able to send people to the thing, and it will populate out to Spotify and Apple and wherever else we tell it to, so people can subscribe before our first episode comes out.
I'm very happy. The sizing, all sized really, really small, still looks really good. Super easy to read. The drop shadow on the stars, I think, was a good call for the smaller thumbnails, so that it still has a little depth. Very, very happy.
Tom is very good at his job.
I was going to ask if Tom signed off on that. Yeah, or did it all. I didn't know.
No, Tom did it. I can give you an exact play-by-play. I made my version, and I sent it to Tom, and I said, do you have any options that you hate less than this? And he said, yes, every single one. LOL. And then sent me 3 of them. I said, that one's the best. Add some drop shadow, I guess. And he said, I love happy clients. And then I said, give me a Instagram tall version so we can do some reels, because everything is a cancer. And give me a wide boy for YouTube. And he was like, that's not that easy, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, he did a great job. Very happy. How's your week?
Yep. Oh, bad. Okay, I have a question. we've talked a lot about creativity and doing things. Even like I have this whole thing where I don't a creator's reflection on their work more often than not has to do with their mood rather than the quality of the actual work. Right. So like if you're in a bad mood and you're taking photos, doing a, engagement shoot or whatever, traveling with friends and just taking photos, but you're in a bad mood, you're not going to really like the photos. But I think that's more of a reflection of your mood than your ability, right? Like you didn't magically forget your decades of experience and skill that goes into how you frame a photo.
Sure.
So that's my that's our ground floor here. But I think there's another area of hating your work and or feeling negative towards whatever you're creating when you literally don't have it, right? Like I am it, right? Like the creativity, you don't whatever you're making actually isn't hitting at all. And you can and you're objectively making bad work, right? So like the idea is that most of the time artists and creators can show up and go through the motions and still get something that's like 95%, 90% of it, right?
Sure.
Every vendor such as yourself has those days, right? Like you're going to a wedding and you're tired or you're a little hungover or what. I mean, you're probably not because you're a professional, but your mood is not there, right?
Well, that's one of the interesting things
your heart
I've
is
always
not
been
in it.
fascinated with weddings is it's not like virtually any other self-employed contracted job where, I can't tell you the number of times I've hired a literal contractor to come work on my house and they've had to reschedule. They're really late. Like wedding photography, your clients are hiring this person that has to show up no matter what is happening in their life, unless it's something like code red emergency. I would never miss a wedding, and having to go through low points in relationships, especially where now you have to immerse yourself in an environment where people's relationships are generally at the highest point ever, is a real challenge sometimes because, you may be going through the lowest point. I've known photographers who signed divorce papers on the way to go cover a wedding. It's like the mental toll that takes on you is intense. It has to play into your work. So how do you I guess people just get really good at disassociating. It's just like putting it on the back burner as well. But I guess
dissociation is definitely a skill.
There must be other jobs where that is. I'm curious about actors where especially like theater performers that every day have to perform a couple times a day or at least once, and every week, like they must have regular occurrences of just like something really difficult happening in life. They kind of have to shelve that and go act in some production like nothing's wrong. That's tough. That's got to play out.
I imagine doctors have a similar situation, right? Like my best friend's dad growing up was a like OBGYN, and he just like disappeared to deliver babies all the time. Super Bowl party, oop, he's gone, right? Sorry, gotta go deliver a baby. Page me the score, right? So like there's like all of these professions where you have to like shelve what's going on or whatever and show up and do the thing. But other professions, you don't have to, right? Like other creative professions, you don't have that gated time, right? Of like, okay, I have to sit down and write a creative essay to publish on my newsletter or whatever, or I have to write a blog post today, or like, sure, there are deadlines and there's business, but like there are
it ebbs and flows.
There are very few content. Yeah, there are very few content emergencies, like legitimate content emergencies. Same with like,
that's also a great
a lot of tech
podcast
jobs.
name. Content emergency.
Yeah.
That's a great name for a podcast.
Content emergency.
Now,
It just
now that it's
opens up
named, we're going to have an endless stream of fantastic
of good names instead of the bullshit ones that we had for months. Yeah.
So but you're describing a situation where you're just not hitting that creative stride at all. Would you say it's a factor of not having creativity or not feeling inspired? Are you feeling inspiration and it's not coming out in a creative way that is like resonant, or is it the inspiration that's lacking to begin with? Or are you like feeling like you're forcing yourself to take a photo?
I mean, all the above, I guess. Right. So part of the question is around like, what do you do when you don't have that? Right. Cause I just become a morose little baby.
Well, I was going to ask, because you also write a lot. Do you think that, like, when you are feeling in a creative slump, does it affect everything you output, or is it specifically your photography? Because for me, I tend to be able to just go pick up and play guitar, and it's not photography. It's a totally different craft, but it's still exercising my creative muscles and intuitions in a way that when I am ready to cycle back into photography, either because I want to or I have to, I still feel very, ready for it mentally. There's not like an awkward warm up of I forgot how to do this.
I think, So I think this might be a unique situation, right? Like, I know I'm not the only person who has this struggle, but it might be a small percentage of folks that do. Everything I do for fun and for joy and for art is also looks a lot like what I do for work, right? I write blog posts and marketing copy and content and support emails and whatever. That's my work. I then write personal essays and books for fun, right? Like I write a weekly newsletter for myself, but I'm also adding a weekly newsletter that is launching with this podcast for Glass, right? I take photos for my creative endeavors and self-portraits and as a form of self-expression and for understanding myself a little better and for practicing my craft as a hobby. But I also used to be a professional photographer, and I run a community platform for photographers, right? So there are a few areas where this grays
just wearing a few hats.
Right. So those are the two things that are very clearly similar. But then there's even stuff that's in between. I love looking at photos. I love talking to people about photos. When I'm commenting on Glass, am I working or am I just hanging out? Right? Because I would be a Glass member even if I didn't work at Glass. Right? I would
that's
be
a pretty good
active in the
signal
community.
that
I'd be
it's a
talking
job
with
that
folks.
You enjoy, hopefully.
Right.
That's
right.
So
really
nice.
that means I nailed the job selection part. But is it work or is it not? We've talked a little bit about this as we started recording, and this is probably going to become a thing that becomes messier and grayer for me moving forward as now that we're launching this and releasing it on a weekly schedule in 1 or 2 weeks. I'm doing this because I just really enjoy talking to you. I enjoy talking about photography and creativity, and I think we're going to have a really fun time, right? And originally this was conceived as a Daniel and Sam project, but then as it grew and as we started actually doing it, it clearly kind of fits under the umbrella of what we're doing at Glass, and we have accidentally talked about Glass in every episode, right? It has just come up enough that's
to be
is this
an accidental thing to come up in a lot of conversations that I have. Again, that's one of the wonderful things about photography is it's such a shared passion between people that do all kinds of other things. I had a wonderful dinner the other night, and I was able to bring up Glass just because somebody was asking about the phone quality of the new iPhones. It's and that leads to, basically, I don't know, maybe it's just in my nature to bring up photography naturally, and then that's going to segue into Glass a lot because I really love to show my work there, way more than to show Instagram. First of all, it's a really weird, awkward thing once you surpass a certain number of Instagram followers to whip that out and be yeah, here's my Instagram work. It's kind of that's kind of icky. I don't feel great doing that. Now, if somebody asks my Instagram name and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're so famous," which also is hilarious. It's like, no, but it's just awkward. But with Glass, I can just show my work and like it comes across almost like it's a social network, but it's I think primarily like a wonderful portfolio type of presentation to the platform. And I have a quick question. Did you? I'm in New York right now, so I'm all over the place. Finally today, later I get to go home. It's been 3 weeks since I've been in my home. I really miss it. But I'm here because of a conference with B&H. Yes, I spoke at B&H's Depth of Field conference. They have had a few of them, and I'm just curious if you saw the live stream or if you've watched my talk on YouTube.
Okay. I did not. I was like, I'm going to save this and maybe try to make it an episode. But then I didn't have anything
my
this
feelings
week.
aren't hurt at all. The whole time I was on stage, I was like, oh, God, I bet Daniel's watching right now. This is freaking me out. I'm just kidding. But I guess it went pretty well. It's when I'm like up and giving a presentation, it's almost always the first time. I never have used the exact same presentation twice, and I've also never watched myself speak in a recording. So I never, people will say like after a talk, and my entire talk was how rejecting the label of storyteller enables more creativity. So there's a lot.
Part
Actually,
the second time you've given the talk.
Second time, yeah. So right, I guess in our previous episode, I pitched you the overall concept. It all came together. People ask me, how did it go once I'm done, and I'm just like, I have no idea. I feel like I was just a rambling mess of ideas. But everyone kind of that approached me afterward or sent me messages seemed to resonate with them. I was just curious if you watched it because it overlapped a lot with what you immediately started this discussion about.
Was my question. Yeah, so like
dealing with the creative roadblocks or sort of labels and perception of your own work, and pushing through that to get to the other side.
Well, yeah. So like I haven't had it this week, but that's been for everything, right? I am. I have accidentally fallen into a series of weekly things, right? Like a weekly cadence for a lot of different stuff, right? Like on, we record every Friday.
Just one pin in that for 1 second. I gotta grab a water. Okay.
There we go. Oh my goodness, you're almost. That's better. There we go.
These Ritz-Carlton blinds just aren't.
You're at the Ritz. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, they know me here.
Why do they know you? I don't want to know.
It's wonderful. They opened. I was there. I think the first weekend they opened just randomly. I didn't realize last summer, and I've come back every visit since in New York. It's a wonderful hotel. Anyway,
the more you know.
I interrupted you. Yeah.
Right, so I fall into a weekly cadence with a lot of the creative stuff that I do, right? Like I'm currently doing a weekly self-portrait series on Glass. I have my own weekly newsletter. I have a weekly writing workshop that I do with a wonderful woman named Vanessa, where we like work through larger writing projects that I'm working on towards finishing a book that I'm working on. I, have my weekly team meeting with Glass. I have now a weekly email that I'm going to be sending out for Glass. We have our weekly podcast, right? Like I have weekly therapy, right? Like everything I'm doing is like on a very weekly cadence. And like I didn't have it at all this week for any of them. Right? Like, I think the only thing I did well this week was therapy, and it was because I was literally complaining about how I didn't feel like I had anything else. Right? So, like, this is the only reason that this is landing is because this is the second time that I've had this conversation. The first time was with my therapist complaining about how I didn't have it this week, right? I'm curious on if and when this happens.
As if it's a...
It, right?
The it. Okay, I just want to make sure.
As a thing that, like, you have.
Thing that you can't... Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
As opposed to, which is not.
So the thing.
I don't know if I believe this, right?
It's interesting. I think the structure of a week like that, or a day where you do have routines, is super important, and a lot of creative people don't they kind of resist that structure. But it is really important to have a consistent output. But it does maybe, and I'm just randomly thinking out loud, maybe causes you to be able to compartmentalize one week to the next and compare yourself against yourself in a way that if you had a more random approach to how you output things, it wouldn't be as obvious, and you wouldn't be so hard on yourself when you do have like a down period of I just haven't been writing. The it has been missing. That's pure guessing. I know that is really helpful for me to have a really kind of erratic creative schedule, but I also need a ton of actual routine in my day to day. Like wake up, if I don't immediately like stretch and do some slight working out or use the sauna or the hot tub or anything else, then my day tends to just like be completely unproductive with nothing at all. So I have certain routines that like kind of kickstart what I do, but I never really set. And I tell people this all the time. Like I've never actually set a goal in my life other than once where I really wanted to get 1,000 patrons. That was like the one goal I ever set. And once I hit that, it was weird. I was like, well, I didn't really find it helpful. So, but virtually everybody I know is very fixated on goals and setting them and believe in them quite a lot. The sun is chasing me, by the way. If you're watching this on video, I apologize, but the sun is just chasing me. Yeah, there we go.
It's a very dramatically lit episode for you.
Yes,
for you, you know.
There we go. Oh my gosh.
Nope, that is just
this is
terrible.
Real bad. Okay, I'm going to move my computer. So, but don't you think that's just normal and part of the process? Are you concerned that like one day you are going to lose it forever? Is that the fear?
Oh, great question. I mean, now. Right, like
could conceivably
I'm scared
happen.
of that. Yeah, I don't know. Like one of the things that I had a mentor when I was a teen, a very heartbroken teen going through a very bad breakup. They tried to comfort me with the phrase, "You're gonna date more people than you're gonna marry," as if like that would make me feel better in the moment, right? And it didn't. I was like, wow, that's actually like pretty inconsiderate and dismissive of my actual feelings. I was a very verbose 15-year-old at this point. And he was like, okay, well, let me say this a different way. One day, your heart will break for the last time. And that did stick in my brain forever, right? Like as like a legitimate thing to be like, oh, hell, that's, cool. Never know when it's going to be. But now I'm also applying that to creativity, right? Like I am going to write my last good personal essay for the last time at some point, right? So I don't.
That's a
now I don't know. Maybe I am
perspective.
scared of it disappearing.
No, it won't. But I think there's a certain healthiness to pushing through those bad weeks, those rough weddings. In my case, where I wasn't firing on all cylinders. Although gratefully, you do. I think anything long enough, you reach a certain baseline where. And I'm never worried, even if personally I didn't feel like I did a great job. I'm never worried that clients are going to be unhappy. You hit a certain baseline where just muscle memory can take over, and enough is going to happen. But but I think it's really healthy to still be in a place where things don't always come easily. That I would say signals you're very far away from any kind of burnout or formula for how you do things that has played itself out so many times that you're kind of sick of it. That happens a lot where people just get way too comfortable and then they don't know how to do what they do in any other way. So they start to resent it and hate it. That happens a lot. I think that's essentially what burnout is.
We're like, 6 weeks into the year, right? I think this is week 6 of 2023. So that means I've taken my 6th portrait. The only way that I'm going to remember this is because of this episode and existing. And if I come back to it, write this, like listen, go, oh, wow, we were on one that day. And then go look at number 6 in my 52 portraits at the end of the year, right? I took it yesterday. I didn't like it. I'm going to take it again today. I'm not going to like it. I'm probably even going to take it again tomorrow because it's a Sunday to Sunday schedule. So I have through Saturday midnight to take a portrait, edit it, upload it. That's my little project. Those are my rules. And I know that I don't like it today, and I'm not going to like it tomorrow when I do it again, right? Like what I made yesterday, it wasn't, not for me. I also know that once I edit it, upload it, and then look back in 2024, January 1st, 2024, and look through the entire list of photos, I'm not going to be able to pick it out as the one I didn't like right now.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Right.
That's a great realization to have. Yeah, that's something I said in part of my talk is the two big consistent things that I experience is public speaking. And I used to get very nervous doing that. I'm very grateful to have grown up playing violin where they made you once a year. There was like the violin recital where you had to play a solo. And, it was like a 7, 8, 9, 10 all the way through high school. That is incredibly scary. And I never took public speaking. I hated having to read in front of classes, all that stuff, until I realized, starting with photography workshops and conferences, public speaking, that this is just how I just feel nervous. I always feel great when I'm done. Even if I do horribly and I crash and burn, maybe I'm just lying to myself. Maybe I'm delusional, but I always feel great. I always feel like I did a good job because I've done something that makes me uncomfortable. So even if nobody else got anything out of it, I always feel wonderful. So I've just had to realize when those butterflies or that stress and anxiety starts to creep up, this is just how I feel right now. So in a way, that starts to alleviate it, and it can be more of just an excitement instead of an anxiety. Exact same thing with wedding stuff. Especially, it took about 3 years for just the nerves of, I haven't seen everything yet happen at a wedding. I wonder what could pop up that I won't know how to deal with, shooting scenario, right? After about 3 years, I realized I had seen every scenario from a technical perspective that I'm ever going to see. I have way more experience attending and being around weddings than even most planners at this point have. I can turn this into confidence and essentially, instead of anxiety, just like a nervous excitement. And as I'm shooting, even now, I walk away from sessions and weddings thinking like, I was off. Like I just didn't, I can't recall if I got anything I love. That's just how I feel after every time. Every single photo that is like my best work, I had that exact same feeling after making it. I didn't realize in the moment that this was going to be like my portfolio header. It was that gap of time that really helps you disconnect and see things with a fresher perspective, that you start to realize, you just have to let these feelings flow through you and keep them at bay so that it's not so crippling.
So what you're saying is I'm going to feel better.
Yes.
So you're saying I'm going to feel better.
You probably not be able to pick it out as a photo that, except we're like talking about it to death now, but not only are you not going to be able to pick it out next year as a photo that you didn't like, but it may actually end up being a photo that you really love. Because, and this was again part of my talk with the storyteller label that so many photographers try and attach themselves to very early. The temptation, I think, because of the nature of photography, the photo's instantly right there in front of you. A lot of people want to rush into like kind of figuring out what the story of this photo is, like ASAP. And I think that's a disservice. If you put a giant gap of time between you and your work, the story will kind of reveal itself later in life. This is exactly what's occurring with most of the photos I'm writing about on glass. Like in the moment, at that time on that day, I would not have been able to write what this photo means to me in the same way that I can write now. And this all came together in my B&H talk by a photo that I made in 2019. And actually, it relates to a podcast we were talking about. When we pulled up my blog post from that trip.
Amsterdam, yeah.
Yes, and it was Belgium. There was a picture of a tree, and it was just a random one of 100 plus photos in this blog post that was very similar in color and tone and composition and in every way to another photo I made in 2019, which was an interesting echo of something that was building. That then this photo was chosen by B&H to be their like marquee photo for the entire conference, which informed my story and my talk in a completely different way. That took essentially 11 years to like come full circle as a story for me. So it's all really interesting. But I think sometimes you just have to detach from the feelings and push through with the work and see where it's going to lead. Why are you giggling?
So why you're saying that? So I write a lot, right? You know, that's my thing. I'm much more a writer than I am a photographer. In the same way that, you know, like back in the day when I would describe myself, I'd always say I'm a runner, right? Like because I was a runner, right? Like that's what I did. I was a runner. I ran like 500 to 1,000 miles a year. That was just my thing. I was a runner. That is no longer my thing. So I no longer introduced myself as a runner. I was a photographer there for a while. So I was like, I'm a photographer. But now I've realized that no, I'm just a writer that does other bullshit. Not core personality, but like my easily explained at a party thing is like, oh, I'm a writer. You know, what do you write? Well, a lot of everything, right? And I had this project that was really bad, just like a really mediocre photo writing project that I had in 2016 and 2017. I made it in 2016. I released it partially in 2017 before I was like, I don't really like this. Like this was clearly a project for me and I'm releasing it publicly. Oops, I'm going to stop. And it was this, I took 4 photographs that I had taken over, you know, like a weekend or a day or, you know, like an event, sort of like a small vignette. And I took 6 minutes and I wrote a short story from them. Anything that came up in 6 minutes. 6 minutes is not a lot of time to write. But for me, I can get, when I'm gated in a time like that where it's like, okay, just write whatever happens and see what happens. I can usually get to like 300 words.
Wow.
Which is a lot of words, because you just have to like it's a writing prompt that I learned from a creative writing teacher in college. The like only thing I learned from that class was one of the things that writers end up doing is they like have an idea and then they think about the idea too long instead of getting the words out. And like getting, you know, like writing all of it out and then being like, okay, great, it's there. I can, you know, like there are always going to be more words. There's always going to be more photographs. There's always going to be more. You just have to let there be. And so this project idea was, I'm going to write for 6 minutes and see what happens. I'm going to pair that with 4 photographs. So I'm going to like either pull a personal essay out of these photographs or something I've been thinking about and try and connect them together. It didn't work great because I was, you know, going through something in my personal life that was like infecting all of the work I was doing, not infecting, inspiring, processing, grieving, whatever. And I couldn't, so I like released some of it, kept most of it for myself. And I've been working on, right now, it's going to end up being like a 12 or 15,000 word essay that it's kind of it's a key cornerstone of my life, but also the collection of essays that I'm writing. It explains a whole lot about my early childhood and life into adulthood. It was like a very strong transitionary period. So I've been working on this essay for weeks and weeks, and I have this beautiful opening that I adore. Right, where I'm sitting in a diner and it's 3 a.m. and it's snowing outside, and I write. The light slouches through the windows as like a verb to describe the weird midnight light that happens in the winter. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, and I got really excited about it. And like my the woman I'm working with who's helping me and providing structure through working through all these essays like called it out. My partner is my copy editor. She read it and was like, that line rules. Like my best friend has read the first draft and he was like, hell yeah. Like every single person has called that out. And I'm like, Anyway, I thought I was very exciting and special. Nope. I wrote it as a way to describe light in that terrible little project that I shouldn't have released publicly. It was in one of those essays. It was the opening line of one of those essays. The light slouched through the basement window. And so I was like looking through something for something else, found that, and I was like, oh shit. I like very excitedly pumped, to like pump to the max, right? Like there's nothing better for me than like nailing a verb. It's just my thing. And I was very excited about nailing this verb, but this verb, turns out I nailed it 6 years ago in a project that I hated.
That's
right.
That is the process. That is exactly. Yeah, maybe I'll read the last line of my my keynote. But yeah, you said a lot. I wanted to touch on. Yeah, this is the last. This isn't like excellent writing by any means, but what I said was, think of images you're making as seeds you're planting throughout your life. In the moment, don't overthink the story or the meaning. Just let the ideas flow through you. Some photographs will be forgotten about. In fact, most will. But if you're patient, if you give it time, and you pay attention, then eventually some photos will grow into something more special than you could have imagined. And then I dramatically closed with the slide that B&H had been, using to promote the whole conference, which was really cool. But it does take that disconnect, that 7. For me, it seems to be closer to like 10 years. And I'm so grateful. And I get what everyone, said to me and other musicians who were like forced, and not forced, but, they like made you practice every day. And they said like, even if you don't become a violinist or a pianist or whatever, you're going to find studying music really, really helpful. And I never really understood why until years later. Like, for example, the writing I would have done at a younger age would be like lyrics for songs. And in the moment, you just, I don't know if you've ever written a song, but it tends to start out as sort of
I have
melodic jumbling, like nothing words, as you start to like figure out the chords and the rhythm, and then eventually words start to take shape. And it's amazing to me to see just dozens of songs that I've wrote at that age. At the time, I had no idea what the song was really about. I was just using it to get through a breakup or, whatever. And then in hindsight, now I can see them and be like, oh, I see exactly, this is a complete thought. I can see exactly what I was trying to process here. But I remember also feeling really guilty that I wasn't writing songs with like pre-thought through intentionality. Like I thought to be a good songwriter, to be a good artist, you had to have the entire vision and concept in your head, then you execute. And that's what made you really smart. But no, most people see later what they were really going through without, knowing it. You're like tapping into this instinctual thing that probably isn't going to make much sense in the process or even soon after you're done. But later, hopefully will. Or you might just write a bunch of crap and pull out 1 or 2 words that those seeds kind of, make sense in something you're working on in a much better way than what you were before. So yeah, that's an amazing story. I love that. I'm glad that you're able to recall and find. Did you say how you came across this previous use? Did you just happen to remember? Or were you searching the word?
No, I was pulling open the my old archives to find something that I could copy paste and use as my weekly newsletter a week or 2 ago because I didn't have it. So I was like, I don't have anything this week. I'm so tired. I'm gonna find something I wrote forever ago, and then I was clicking around. The thing I wrote, that line in, not good, right? But that line, I was like, oh my God, specifically the verb, right? Like I'm talking about a single verb and what light does with it, right? Because light is usually, as we've seen by your video today, beaming, rolling, shining, like bright and like has opinions, as opposed to like a morose character that's just like stumbling into the room. So that was bad. But then I found something else that I wrote that was great. And then I ended up writing a like 400 word introduction to the thing that I wrote. And so even then I, in my effort to find something, because I didn't have it, I wrote 400 words about a thing that ended up being like a nice little vignette. And I was like, ooh, that feels nice.
Yeah, it is nice. Okay,
so to recap, and to really nail down our trailer for the podcast, we can just cut this line in. Let's add a little marker. Creativity is the worst. What a wonderful thing we get to do.
Ooh.
There it is. We did it.
I love that. Have you?
There was
the Creative Act yet? The book by Rick Rubin. I know I must have mentioned it a few times to you at this point, but you need to. You absolutely need to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy it right now.
It's the kind of book that you don't even have to, like, you could turn to almost any page and start reading and get something out of it. It's not a chore to read and get to something that you feel really inspired by, at least for me. I hope that's the same thing everybody has. But he has a lot of, I think, helpful strategies and opinions that overlap with exactly what we're talking about. The fact that you might have something you work really hard on that never sees the light of day, it never gets completed, it's shelved, it's forgotten about or whatever. And that even if it's a, quote, failure of a product or idea or something, it's not like you can't still take those skills with you to the next project, the whatever it might be, even if it's literally a different craft entirely. The creative process is it's like eerily similar for everything, especially. And one reason I think Rick's book resonates with me so much is because I spent a long time working on the craft of music and audio production and recording, but he doesn't really even get into that much at all. It applies to every single craft, writers, photography. It's like to a T. So I'm excited to hear if you pick it up. I was trying to find a highlight that he had specifically, but it's Apple Books app is just so awful. But I did land on a page. I like this quote.
No, you cannot. We are not complaining about another Apple product this week. No complaining about Apple products this week. We have
this is a nice page
we can only do it like every other week.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, we'll never get Phil on here otherwise. But here he's got these like chapters, and then randomly he'll have like little standalone quotes that are really nice. And this is one that I turned to just now. Create an environment where you're free to express what you're afraid to express. It's really nice.
That is really nice.
The work reveals itself as you go. That's the next one. It's really nice. Yeah. Failure is the information you need to get where you're going. It's really sweet. Okay, I'm gonna stop with that. But it's a great book.
Well, no, I have a question. So, at some point, you and me through different means, right? So, like we've both reached a level of success where the creativity and the things we're working on don't impact our day-to-day anymore, right? Like me not having it for my newsletter this week, okay, that's fine, right? Like the couple hundred people that subscribe to it are going to be like, oh, well, I mean, they're probably going to love it, which is going to be the most annoying part for me, which is a thing that will happen is when like I will not have it, I will write a thing, and then they'll be like, this is the best thing that you've ever written. I love this. And it'll get shared, and
that's
like
super awkward.
100,000 people read it. And I'm like, I hate this because I wrote this in 20 minutes after I had given up.
The full context of what was happening. Yes, I know exactly that feeling. It's odd. Go ahead.
So we have reached a level of success where we our like individual creative acts are not, for lack of a better term, feeding us, clothing us, housing us, right? Like you have reached the level of success with your photography career and the creativity that you do there. I have found solace in writing marketing and, not actively just trying to be a creative writer that's publishing in magazines to make a living, right? Like that's not my, like the collection of essays that I'm writing right now is not going to be my livelihood. I have found that elsewhere, but the only reason that I have been able to still do these things is because I have found enough stability elsewhere that I also have enough time to still create and work on these things, right? And so, like, super fortunate there, super lucky, feel very grateful for that, because that wasn't always the case, right? Like the first few years of
I got to say though, the trick is, when that becomes not the case anymore, I think a lot of that, the early years, the pressure that comes, depending on how intense it is, and everyone's going to handle it differently. But for me, I need a little bit of that outside pressure to stay not just motivated, but it's like that. It's like that fear. I don't know if you know that Friends episode where you need the fear. So they're like, they convince Rachel to quit her job so that she like is motivated to go out and get another one. There is something to that. That's one of the reasons I love Patreon so much. It is this balance of Oh my God, for the first time in my life, I have a semi-predictable recurring stream of revenue. That's wonderful because I've always had this fear that I'm going to one year get the most inquiries I've ever gotten in my life, and then they're all going to be for June 3rd and no other dates. It's like, what am I going to do then? Like, I've always had that paranoia. But the Patreon balance is, yes, I have recurring revenue, but I also see the downward pressure of when people unsubscribe. And I don't take it personally. I don't really pay attention to who it is and how long they were there or anything. I don't obsess over it at all. But I do find it it holds me accountable to keep providing better and better, higher quality insights for people that stay. And there's a little bit of that, like I'm going to do just a little bit extra to make that person not regret leaving, but like I want all those people to come back. Like whoever is leaving, like I want to do something so great that they undeniably regret leaving. And I not, and that's just the battle that I'm fighting in my own head. But Patreon provides a balance of both of these extremes. Like you can take a breath for sure, because you have some degree of income predictability, even in a creative field. That is amazing. But you also don't want to be so comfortable that you then only because, again, in those formative years, at least for me, when I've done some of my best work. But that's just me. I don't know. Maybe you lean more toward the you have a certain degree of success and stability, and that enables a lot more freedom and risk that you can take in your writing. I don't know.
It's kind of both, right? I think the focus that I have has shifted, right? Now that I have a little bit more stability. Before it was, okay, now I need to I really can't miss a week, right? Like if I am having, because like people can subscribe to my newsletter and pay me, right? Or they used to be able to.
Substack,
and
what is that?
I host it through Squarespace because I don't like Substack because they're.
I know nothing about it. I just hear it a bunch across like randomness. Yeah, I know. What's wrong with them?
The internet, Substack. I shall not go down this route.
Okay,
because I will take another hour. But I'll just say
I thought it was essentially just Patreon for writers.
I mean, it effectively is.
Good to know.
It is
but,
that.
Let's not go down that.
Anyway,
yeah.
I've like literally fought with the CEO about it on calls. It's not great. Anyway, and Substack rant, they're bad. So I pay money to Squarespace and pay the most outrageous amount of money because it's like $700 to have a subscription on, like $700 a year to have a subscription offered via Squarespace.
That's not accounting even for like the transaction fees and everything. Yeah, that's just purely to
nope, not transaction fees.
Wow.
Also doesn't count for the extra $120 a year that I have to spend to send email via them. It is by far the most expensive option available to me. I could, have a I could have a Substack for free. I could have a tiny letter for free. I could, have a ghost for $11 or whatever. But I like how I'm able to make a website to look on Squarespace. Brought to you by Squarespace. Build it beautiful.
Yeah.
So they were correct. I can build it beautiful, so I give them too much money for my personal project.
Is that their tagline? Build
great.
It beautiful? Is that their? I don't even know. Oh, okay.
Yeah, build it beautiful.
I haven't looked at
anyway.
Squarespace in a while. You did remind me, and I'm excited to share with you and talk through maybe in a separate episode. I have a meeting later this afternoon to see updated mock-ups for my new website. So I'm excited.
Hell yeah! We should have Tom on to talk about appreciations and other things to build. Like what goes into building a designing network. But then we can also have Tom provide feedback for you. As a professional opinionated designer.
Yeah.
He is
a great idea.
A very opinionated little man.
Problem is with a lot of the mock-ups that you get in the like early phases of a website. I mean, I've only done a couple sites and I've never designed them myself. A lot of it is based on like a lot of the design are the words, and that's sort of the last thing I really start to put together because like I don't get the Photoshop files or Illustrator files or whatever they're building them, and the website has to start being programmed and coded before I can actually start to tweak the words, which is a bit of an unfortunate thing in the process because sometimes I realize a word that I want to use and it's like way too long or way too short in the design phase. If I had been able to tweak that, I probably would have, would have informed things differently. But there's always a give and take.
That's why
nothing's ever.
That's
ever
one
as
of the
good
reasons that we write first.
Yeah,
As
that's
our
smart.
like as a
I'm also really
as a
lazy,
thing.
so I just kind of want to get the thing coded, and then I'll shoehorn in the ideas later. That's a great way to
Well,
run
that's
a.
fine.
Yeah.
You're not a writer, you know. You're the creative guy. I'll write all your words for you. We can make another episode where I write all your content for you. That'll be very fun.
That
Anyway,
would be interesting. Give you full access, and then just like pull it up one day without any input.
just
and
just
see what you
surprise.
come
Here's
up with.
everything that I changed for you and why.
My big idea is to have somewhere on the homepage a big, bold, giant somewhere that something along the lines of all I ask for is your complete and total trust. in a way that like sounds like really intense, but that's also
And
kind of what I
thousands of
want.
dollars.
Yeah, and thousands of dollars. Yeah, some money would
You
be nice.
you are paying me to trust me with the most important images that will ever be made
It's-
of you.
It is interesting how that relates to money. I get photographers all the time saying that they are micromanaged by wedding clients a lot. And the first question I always want to ask, it's not always feasible depending the context of where they're asking and all that, is how much do you charge? Because you do find that the more money a person is spending, the more they just assume that you know better than they do. Not everyone's like that. You still get people that are very type A or controlling, spending more than anyone else. That's going to happen. But if in general the rule that what your clients are doing is trusting you, then you're probably charging the right amount. And if it's the exception that you get the random really difficult client, then that's fine. That's going to happen. If it's reverse though, and it's more the rule that you get clients that are really controlling and picky about you, then you need to change something in either your branding, more likely your pricing, to kind of flip that again. But anyway, I kind of got on a big tangent there because it was again part of my.
I mean,
my
your pricing
days ago.
is part of your branding. That's like a very important part of it. It's like one of the things that I used to, when I was working in more generic marketing and just like marketing strategy for agencies and working for whatever without a specialization in like technology and early stage internet companies and bootstrap businesses, right? Like I had a very wide open, like I'm working for anybody because I want and need to pay rent. And one of the things that I always told restaurant clients is that their rent was their most expensive and most important marketing tool. Because if you have the best food in the world in the worst location, you're going to go out of business. But if you have pretty good food and a great location, you're going to be in business forever until you decide to shut it down, right? Like your rent is the most important thing. We had a client.
Speaking of which, one of
who's,
the best restaurants I've ever been to in my life is called Luthen in New York City, and I have a suspicion that is the exact problem they are up against. They are in a part of New York that used to be happening, and then COVID hit, and everybody took a giant exodus from that part of New York, and hasn't really recovered yet, unfortunately. And they also opened the entire restaurant like around 2020, so it's not like they had a deep history of with like a loyal customer base. They had to build all this from scratch in a neighborhood that is still not recovered. Luthen, so I just want to plug them. 10-course tasting menu, some of the best food I've ever had in my entire life. Excellent wine pairings. It's incredible. And it's one of the few sort of fine dining restaurants where you can go solo, and they set you up at the chef's table essentially, and you get to watch them cook everything right there in front of you. It's very like intimate and revealing experience for fine dining, especially. A lot of times that's done.
This is
a
Finer Things episode for Sam. We're coming to you from the Ritz. Please go to this 10-course tasting menu.
If I come to New York, I come here a lot, and I used to go real low key Airbnb and basically just eat Taco Bell or something. But over the years, the more I come here, the more I'm like, I'm going to make it worth it. If I'm shooting a wedding in
love
New
that
York,
for you.
it's going to be fun. Yeah.
You deserve it.
I also have credit card points that allow me to stay here for a good deal.
Oh, right. Credit card points. I forget that people use those. We have,
Yeah, it's a thing.
we have so many miles that we have not used.
That is why companies love them, because people tend to not use them. It's like a gift card that the gift card industry is, I don't remember how many billions of untapped, never will be used dollars because the card has been lost or forgotten about or has a few extra bucks that they're never going to bother to spend. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
I mean, we offer gift cards at Glass.photo, so
You're right. We should do
thing.
a whole episode really about pricing. It's something that I've always struggled with. Many of my, I don't want to price myself out of certain areas of society, for lack of a better word. I don't know how else to say it. Like
income brackets, right? Like
certain income brackets. Yeah. People tell me all the time I should charge more, and people that are worse than me with less experience do charge like double what I charge. But it has to be true that past a certain tipping point, you are pricing yourself well out of reach of like normal people. And
yeah.
I never want to lose that. I want to always have some reach. Every year I've shot a wedding where the reception is in like the rec room of the church basement. And so I want to be right at that middle ground where I'm clearly the most expensive vendor at this wedding, or I'm clearly the box that they check marked and it doesn't really matter what I cost. They could pay anything. Like I want to be within reach of both of those client extremes, which is really tough to do. But I also think that leaves some headroom to grow, which I've always believed in as a really good, powerful thing in a business. Like do the most you can with as little as you can, whether that be money coming in or equipment that you own, get really, really good. And that leaves headroom to grow. It's one of the reasons I've always resisted off-camera flash as well. Like I know it, I'm an expert at it. That is a whole nother avenue and degree that a whole nother, I don't want to use photography puns. No, a whole nother angle to my work I could use if I wanted. That would totally change the look of my work, and I could probably spend 10 years making a completely new style in my stuff if I ever feel that pull. I'm leaving that option up there instead of jumping into that and then going the other way. That's really hard when you become like the master at everything and you're known for insane off-camera flash. To maybe get bored of that and start to whittle back to natural light only is odd. It's harder to go in that direction. Just like it's really hard to raise your prices and then lower them significantly because people don't want to. It's hard to swallow your pride and do that.
Yeah.
So I guess there's trade-offs in both directions that you might be going, but yeah, I'm going to stop ranting.
I love this. I'm very excited for this future episode. I almost asked a leading question that was going to open it up, and I was like, no, wait, we are almost exactly at an hour. I should not start another conversation that'll take 45 minutes. That's the future. Well, we are we're launching this relatively soon, Monday, I guess. Monday is when it's... No, this won't be the first episode. Official? The next one will be the first official. So we are announcing it on Monday. And then the following week will be the first published. So next Friday when we record will be our official first episode.
And we'll just dump all of these as a backlog of... We also need to discuss show episode titles and the format.
Show notes.
What we're going to do.
Oh, yeah.
Show notes. But more importantly, the titles. Yeah, we'll have to think about that. But let's hit buy on this recording. I'm going to stop it. This is lovely. Somehow.
Thank you for listening to Endless Appreciations once again, or for the very first time.
Is it Endless Appreciation or Appreciations?
Endless Appreciation. That was me being too excited. I was too excited to get it to
I don't think I like that extra S.
Endless Appreciation.